occasion of JG Physiocon 2026. It's a unique conference in the way more than 2,300 registration has been done. And because of so much rush, they have to close down the registration before 2 months. Now, let me give you a brief background about this session. Very few conferences are really delegate centric, and this is one of the conference which is really delegate centric. Why? Because they thought that if we have a good lectures, then delegates will be able to understand it better, will be able to learn better, and then they will be able to apply the theory in the practice. So ultimately that will benefit everyone, to the patients and to the practitioner. So with that aim, they thought that let's have a session in which all the presenters, they get some message how to present in a better way or effectively. So with that, I request my colleague, Dr. Pranav Joshi, to introduce the speakers. Over to you, Dr. Pranav.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Dhiren bhai, for this opportunity. I think we already know Dr. Dhiren Ganjwala. He is a pediatric orthopedic surgeon from Ahmedabad, and he was a past president of Pediatric Orthopaedic Society of India. I must tell you that he is a wonderful orator and presenter, and we will hear from him regarding this topic in a short while. But before that, let me introduce Dr. Mihirdev Jhala. I think you all know him, Mihirdev. He is a principal of JG College of Physiotherapy, Ahmedabad, and he is also a good orator. So for this topic, I think we have two great orators with us. So without wasting much time, I think we should start our session and ask Dhiren bhai to guide us about how to deliver an engaging podium presentation. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Before I start, let me introduce Pranav bhai. Pranav bhai is again very much interested into how to present, and he takes the session of his students, the postgraduate students, on how to present. And he has also looked at the presentation from the neurologist perspective. So that's an very additional quality he has, that when we are listening a presentation, what goes in our mind, that he has understood well. And many a times he tells us, or even he guide me also, that this is the area where you really need to modify. So before I start presentation, let me ask, can you see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So this session is divided into two broad category. In the first 25 minutes, we will discuss about the content part. Then we will have a short interaction. We will also take your questions after that. And if whatever time is remaining, we will also discuss about the scientific designing of the slides. So that will be the second part. So with that, let me start the first slide. So this is the picture of the last year, not last year, but the last JG Physiocon, which was at one of the largest auditorium in Ahmedabad, and more than 1,200 seats were fully occupied at the time of the keynote address, where I was invited to give that. And you can see that the hall was jam-packed. This is very different than the conferences which we see. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So before we go into the subject, if you have any question, feel free to ask question now or even later. Just note down the number 97129256000. I repeat, 97129256000. So in any conference, there are three types of presentation. The first one is a competition papers. Not everyone gets the opportunity to have in this session, but very few, 60, 70 or 100 people, they get into this slot where they are evaluated, and from that the best paper of the conference is declared. Almost 70 to 80% of the papers are in a noon competition session, where you have some freedom of what to cover, what not to cover. And the last is very few people, senior people, they are invited for the guest lectures. So today's session is going to help all the three. I look at these three group in a way like Kohli is playing a T20, or he's playing a one day, or he's playing a test match. Ultimately, it's a cricket. So, similarly, whether you are in a competitions series, or you are in a non-competitive paper presentation or a long lectures, the presentation strategy varies, but many things remain similar. So, in this lecture, we are going to focus on what is similar, and then during the question answers, we will try to discuss about how the presentation strategy varies in all the three. So let's start with a Manthan who received a message few days back that you will be presenting at the JG Physiocon 2026. And he was very happy, and soon he started dreaming in his mind that yes, I will present in such a way that I get the best paper award. But after few minutes, he had a realization that the last time when he was presenting, this was the situation. Even his friends, his colleagues, they were yawning during the presentation, and some of them were looking at the mobiles. And then also he remembered his past experience where only few of the friends were in a hall which has a capacity of 300 plus people. I call such situation a outstanding conference. Why I call it outstanding? Because most of the delegates are standing outside the hall of the conference. That's why I call them outstanding conference. And nowadays, this is becoming more and more bigger and bigger challenge for every conference organizer, that they have a large number of registration, but inside the hall, there are very few people. So let's start with the basic. Whenever we are speaking to someone, whether it's a consultation, whether it's a therapy session, or a lecture, we are communicating. And the purpose of communication is like this is the speaker and this is the audience. Then the purpose of communication is to transmit the idea which the presenter has or the person who is speaking has to the other person. That's what the purpose of communication. And if we can do that effectively, then we are successful. However, we need to remember that there is a major obstacle to this simple thing. It looks simple that if we speak, automatically the other person will understand. But there is a major obstacle. And then obstacle is that this person or audience is wearing a invisible helmet. And because of that helmet, whatever idea you are trying to transmit, that does not enter into the mind of the audience, but it goes out. So, as an expert presenter, you need to create a hole in that invisible window so that whatever you are trying to convey enters into the mind of audience. So that's basically the purpose of good communicator. So if you think of any winning presentation, it stands on three things. The first is content, the second is slides, and the third is the delivery, the way you talk. So these are the important pillar of any powerful presentation. I would like to give you an analogy. Like, consider this concept as a car. The power of the car is the engine that's basically drive the car. The exterior and the interior of the car, that's basically we can compare it with slides. And the delivery technique is like how she drives the car, or the driver's capability is the delivery part. So we need a strong engine, we need a good interior and exterior, and at the same time we need a good driver. Similarly, in presentation we need content, we need good slides, and we need a good delivery. The combination of these three will make the presentation memorable. So in today's session, because of the time constraint, we will focus on the content and the slides. We will not cover the delivery part. However, if time permits, we will discuss that at the end. So let's start with the first part, that's the content of any presentation. So if you want to engage audience, you need to remember certain things. The first and the foremost thing is, I call it, what is in it for me. In short, that's called YFM. In simple words, the audience is thinking, what is my benefit? Maro shu faido. So that is what everyone is thinking. So let me explain you this concept. Let's say there is a young college students, they went to a picnic. There were few friends and they had a wonderful day at the picnic. They took many photographs. At the end of the day, when they came home, one of the friend uploaded 34 photos. Now, a simple question, which photo one person would look? The answer is very simple. You would always like to look at your photo. If 3 photographs out of this 34 have you in the picture, then you will try to look at carefully, you will zoom it and you will see your facial expression and everything. You are not interested in other photographs. So the important message is, people are interested in themselves and in their benefit. That's the bottom line of any successful presentation. If we have an audience like this, everyone is thinking, what is my advantage? What is for me? So whenever we prepare our presentation, the first thing we need to remember that what we are going to give to the audience, or what benefit we are going to give to the audience. That's the first question we need to ask. So everyone is trying to think that how this presentation will help me to get better result in the practice, more name, fame, and the credit, or more money with less efforts, or more patients, trust, and reference. So these are the things people they are thinking. And when you provide material which give them any of this benefit, then they would be interested in your presentation. So let's understand that more YFM you have in the presentation, it is more likely to be appreciated. If we take a 2 presentation of the same duration, let's say of 15 minutes, A and B, in A, the presenters covered something which is important for the audience, useful to the audience, which I have shown in the green. And in the presentation B, the presenter spoke more about himself or herself, not about what is important for the audience. And if I ask you which presentation is going to be appreciated, and I am sure that lecture A will get the ovation like this, while lecture B will have most of the time a situation like this. People are disinterested, they are looking at their mobile, they are scrolling the Facebook and the Instagram, but they are not interested in your thing. So this is the first important message. The second message, if you want to maintain the rapport with the audience, then you have to ensure that you don't give the complex message. Avoid complex messages. There are various ways of that, and we will see one by one how we create a complexity. So the first situation is like this small boy wants to look at this telescope, but the height of the telescope is so that he cannot reach that. And for him, this is useless. The same thing happens, and that's known as a curse of knowledge. What is curse of knowledge? When you know a subject a lot. Like as shown over here, the orange is the bar, which says that you know the subject well because you have done an extensive work in that. You have a very wide experience in that particular subject. And then you think that the audience is also equally knowledgeable. But on the other hand, if you look at the audience, their knowledge about that particular subject is very less. And because of that, when you start talking on a very high level, the situation of the audience is something like a bouncer ball. They really don't understand what is happening. The second problem about the complexity is all speakers have Shashi Tharoor in them. Please don't take it that way that I am contradicting or saying something bad about Shashi Tharoor, but I try to take it in a lighter way, and I will give you the example of that. So, if I am speaking, then this gentleman, every speaker have a Shashi Tharoor personality, and because of that, when they are at the podium, they would speak from the Tharoor style. Language, when rendered dense and encrusted with excessive jargon, ceases to function as a conduit of thoughts and instead degenerate into an impediment to cognition. And when you listen something like this, you remember the dialogue of "Arey कहना क्या चाहते हो" from the Three Idiot movie. Sometimes when you want to say the same message in a simple way, then I would say difficult words overload your brain, and that makes understanding slow. So please avoid difficult words. So what in the earlier slide I showed you the Shashi Tharoor style. My approach would be to speak very simply in a words which everyone can understand. Then in medical conference and all other specialty conference, we see very frequently not the original Shashi Tharoor, but the brother of Shashi Tharoor. And by that, I mean they use complex terms and the short forms. So they use the complex terms like mechanotransduction, arthrokinematics, osteokinematics. These are very difficult words and we don't use routinely. And the audience which is coming, who is in a private practice, who is not in the teaching institute, for them all these terminology is a jargon and very difficult to understand. The another form is a short form. Because you are doing work extensively, you use a closed chain kinematics, open chain kinematics, MWM, RNT, DNS. So all this terminology you use very frequently with the idea that the other person is going to understand the meaning. If you really want to use it, then explain the meaning, the full form of this short form first, and then you use this short form. Why we need to avoid such words? I would like to give the analogy that when you give a difficult word, the person takes more time to understand. And at that particular time, the situation is something like when you are trying to download a big file and your internet connection speed is less, you see something like circle moving, buffering. Remember that the same thing happens in the minds of the audience, that they take a long time to understand your difficult word. And when they are trying to recapitulate or remember what you are trying to say, they forget, they lost the connection with you, and whatever you say next, they will miss. So avoid complex words and short forms. Now, I would like to ask you, what do you see? I know that it's very difficult to say what is the picture trying to convey because it's very vague, it's very abstract. When we go to a art show and when the pictures are like this, the abstract painting, we really have to think a lot. So this is the picture of the peacock, but it was very difficult for you to make out that this is the picture of the peacock. So by that point, I would like to say that avoid vague, ambiguous, abstract messages. Knowingly, unknowingly, we used to give such abstract or ambiguous message, and for the other person, for the audience, it's very difficult to understand. So if message is not clear, as we saw in the peacock example, brain takes more time to understand, and during that particular time, the connection with the speaker is lost. So let's see some of the example of abstract message. One expert speaker during the keynote speech says that the clinical work is a journey. Every patient teaches something different. Trust your process and stay attentive. Consistency matters more than a speed. And with time, clarity develops and outcome improves. Fine. So he gave a wonderful message. But ultimately, the audience at the end of the day thinks that what this gentleman is trying to convey. So there are, in nutshell, there are 4 type of complex messages, and we should try to avoid them. The first is very high level of information. The second is hi-fi language. If you are from an English medium, your English is good, and then you try to impress the audience. But the people are coming from a different background, and for them it's very difficult. The third complexity is difficult words and the short forms. And the last is the vague, ambiguous, or abstract ideas. So we should try to avoid that. And I'm going to share with you a simple trick. Whenever your presentation is ready, ask yourself a question. Is this point necessary to tell to the audience? This question will take care of the very high level of information. And the most important test is, will audience understand this? For that, I suggest you to carry out a grandma test. If you have to explain your presentation to your grandmother or a grandfather, will you be able to explain? If your answer is yes, then definitely you should cover that point. If your answer is no, then you should reform the message. You should try to simplify so that other person understand. Now we come to the third point, and that's the very important point. And let me tell you the peculiarity of our audience. Let's say this is a speaker and he is emitting the signals. On the other end, we have an audience. They have an antenna, and this antenna is trying to catch the signals which are emitted by the speaker, like this. So the signals which are emitted by the speaker, they are received by the audience. Now, the funny part is, or a unique characteristics of the brain, which Dr. Pranav will definitely tell us about that. Our mind has a wondering ability. So in few seconds of the presentation, the mind starts thinking differently because the antenna is now not aligned with the speaker, because then you have an idea about the past or the future. You think that what you are going to do after this lecture, what you are going to do in the weekend, or like what was the problem you had with your friend. So your mind start taking this, thinking this, and ultimately you lost connection with the speaker. So a good speaker takes effort or makes effort to align this antenna so that it's again aligned with the speaker, and whatever signals are transmitted, they are received well by the audience. This looks very easy to understand, but to apply this is difficult. But I'm going to show you the trick how to do that. So let's understand how to do that. So let me give you a story. Few years back, I went to Switzerland, and every day with the consultant whom I was observing, we had to travel around 20-30 kilometers, and our way passes through the gardens or the greenery on the by the side of the roads. And every day, like, we see these cows. On day one, day two, I was really interested in those cows. After 3 or 4 days, I lost the interest. But then on the eighth day, I saw like this, the purple cow. And again, my attention was drawn to the cows. So why did I notice the purple cow? The answer is very simple, that it was a novelty. So whenever we have a novelty in our presentation, the people will pay attention. So the next important question, how can we bring novelty in our presentation? We can introduce pictures, we can add a short video technique, or we can show the results, the pre and the post, and that conveys the message much more powerfully. We can show the animations also, or we can tell some personal story, like the example which I gave before a minute about that cow. The same thing, you can cover something which brings novelty and that helps to maintain the interest of the audience. So there was a wonderful study which was done. That study says that if I say dog, and instead of that I show the picture of a dog, or I say a box, instead of that I show the picture of box, after 72 hours, means after 3 days, how much audience will remember? When I have used words, the audience remember only 10%. But if I have used pictures, the audience remember 6 times more. And that's what ultimately we want. We want our message to be remembered, and pictures are a very nice way of conveying that thing. So if I want to tell you about the results of Jenu Valgam, if I say that I operated a 15-year-old boy, and in 8 months his leg got corrected, fine, you will have some understanding. But instead of that, if I say that like this was a preoperative picture, this is at 4 months, and this is at 8 months, the legs are completely corrected. I really don't need to tell you a lot of things about this, and I'm sure that you are going to remember these pictures for a long time. So it's rightly said that one picture is equivalent to 1,000 words. So that's very true. Animations are also very effective way of conveying the message, and it's a novelty. So let me give you one example. If I want to describe a technique of femoral lengthening, means when one femur is short, if we want to lengthen it, how we do it? I am describing the surgical steps in words. Insert 2 pins in the proximal fragment, 2 pins in the distal femur, then cut the bone, carry out osteotomy, then separate out the 2 parts, the proximal and the distal femur, and stop when the desired length is achieved. And ultimately, the gap will be filled by bone. Yes, you will understand something. You will try to create a picture in your mind. But instead of that, if I use an animation that the left femur is short, we pass 2 pins proximally, 2 pins distally. Then we cut the bone, and after cutting the bone, gradually we elongate the cut end. So 2 ends are separate. And over a period of time, the gap will be filled with new bone. Once that is done, you can remove the fixator. And now 2 femora are of the same size. So I am sure that again you are going to remember this for a long time. As a bonus, I request you to take a picture of this If you search on a YouTube or a web class OrthoTV, how to convey better with animations, you will come across this presentation, which is again a 1 hour presentation in which I have shown how to use animation for conveying the message effectively. You can also add stories. You may think that you are not experienced person and how can you find out a story? It could be any personal experience, it could be your complication, it could be your challenge, anything you can use it, an unusual case. Any of this can be a wonderful story and people remember story for long time. But please remember that this is not novelty. Please don't use such clip arts. They don't bring any novelty. They are just waste of time, waste of slide. So I would like to end my first part of the presentation about the content. There are three important messages. Align your lecture around what audience wants. Think about the audience benefit and plan your presentation accordingly. Now, if you look at every slide, every point which I told you in this part in the presentation, everything is useful, relevant for the presenter. Avoid complexity. Try to be as simple as possible and bring novelty so that audience enjoy your presentation. So I would like to stop my presentation over here and would like to have some interaction. And if you have any question, you can also start sharing the question. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dhiren bhai, for the wonderful presentation of the first part of this talk. I do definitely have a question because when I start creating a presentation, I start making a PowerPoint. Once I try to involve everything like a story, a novel idea, a picture, and then elaborate the content, definitely like this, then my slides and everything goes very beyond our time limits, right? For a 20 minutes presentation, my slides would be around 60. So how do we manage time, particularly for the content given? How do we manage the time on the podium? How much time we should give on for this and for that? Do you have any plan or do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, that's a very important point, and I fully agree with you. Like this presentation, 40% of the slides I have hidden. The reason is because actually I want to so much, but I know that in the given time it's not possible, and this happens with almost everyone. So the first thing is like we need to decide what is most important. We try to keep that, and what is less relevant to the audience we try to remove. So again, the first question which we discussed, the point, what is YFM, we try to keep those points and then we try to remove rest of the thing. So that's the first part. The second part, which we have not discussed, but all the time you have to remember that, particularly for the competitive presentation, that you are given only a limited time. And if I consider that as a, like you go to a Tamzam and you have a 200 items, but someone says that only 15 minutes will be given to you. The same thing happens with most of the presentation. They want to say so many things, but they don't have a adequate time. But practicing your presentation 3, 4, 5 times and to ensure that everything important thing is covered, that's very important part.
Right. Thank you. I think Dhiren bhai and even Dr. Mihirdev can also take part in this second question of mine, which is like once I made the presentation and I have made the presentation and I will review it. And once I review it, I always feel that it is complete. That's very common problem, right? We do not have a second angle. So to review, what is the other option that we can show it to someone or we should ask someone to review our presentation? Or the second question in the same thing. do we take the help of AI in this making a presentation? Should we?
Okay, yeah, let's have a Mihir Bhai first. Please unmute yourself and start your video because audience would be like to see your smart face.
Definitely, we would ask our colleagues to review our presentation, because whenever, even if we see multiple times our presentation, if we review it, we would feel that it's all fine after editing two, three, 4 points. But even a major mistake we could have in our presentation that we would not notice, but our colleague on a first strike would notice. That's a normal mental rehearsal what we do. It will be better presented by Dr. Pranav sir. So definitely we should review the presentations with our 2 to 3 colleagues. That's the one point. The second point, whether we should ask AI. Definitely, we should ask AI just to make it more attractive. And if we are missing some more important points, we could add with the help of AI, but we should not totally 100% rely on AI for our presentations. Especially, this message is for the dear students who are preparing their presentations. Please do not ask AI to prepare a PowerPoint for you for XYZ topic. You will definitely not do good while you are presenting in a scientific paper or a poster. So that's the thing I would like to pass on to Dr. Pranav. Please, you can add some points here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would like to add on this. I fully agree with you that always ask someone, your friend, your colleague, or even junior, to review your presentation because that's very important. What you because you have prepared your presentation, you consider that this is perfect. But when someone look at from a completely different angle or a new angle, they would be able to find out mistakes. So most of my presentation are like reviewed by Pranav Bhai, particularly if it's a major meeting. I always try to share with him. But now the problem is everyone is busy in their practice. So the simplest solution to that is the use of AI. And how I do that with AI, let me share my tricks. I ask a specific question to AI that this is my presentation. I tell them about the target audience. I also tell that this is the time limit. Then I ask specific question whether I am missing any particular point which will be useful to the audience, how I can bring novelty in this presentation. So I ask each question specifically. So all the 3 points which I discuss in the content part, I ask to AI one by one, and it gives a wonderful information. But the next point is like it gives you a lot of suggestions. You have to decide what to accept, what not to accept. So yes, I strongly recommend that use AI for reviewing. But I fully agree with Dr. Mihir's suggestion. Please don't rely on AI to make presentation. There are Gamma, Prezi, so many tools available, even the Copilot. They make the presentation, but the quality of that presentation is mediocre. If you want something outstanding, then you really have to work hard for your presentation. That's the important thing I would like to say. Now, only with a few weeks exposure to this AI tool, I can make out that this slide is with the co-pilot. This is from Prezi. This is from Gamma. So audience is also smart and they will be able to tell you that this is not your slide. It is by AI tool. So this is one point.
Right. Agree with I think I agree with both of you that use of AI should be limited. And whenever you are using the AI, the prompt is very important. The prompt which you are giving to the AI platform defines the whole purpose, what is the audience, why you want to present, what you want to convey. So the prompt is very important. Once you want to review this, then also give a good prompt to the AI, and then it should do the trick for you for reviewing everything. I think we have 10-12 minutes for the second part of the session. So we
Yeah.
asked Dr. Dhiren Bhai to continue his second point, that is regarding the slides, how to make a engaging slide for the presentation. Over to you, Dhiren bhai.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the slides are visible, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are now focusing on the slides part. We have decided what to cover, but we are using slide as a tool to convey the message which we want to give. Now, the first important point is who is more important, speaker or slides? And my answer to that is very clear. And I'm sure that all experts will say that the speaker is the most important thing. So, slide is a support, but it's not the boss. Suppose you are driving and there is a lot of fog, something like Delhi, then you are not able to see what is in front of your car. And driving is very difficult. Almost the same thing happens in the presentation. And for that, the visibility is very important while driving. Similarly, when you are presenting, your slides should be readable. For that, I would suggest that slide background and the font color, they should be exactly contradictory. I will show you by which what I mean by that. So this is a gradient background where the upper part is bright, the lower part is dark. Now, whichever font you use, that will have a poor visibility. If you are able to see the upper poor visibility well, then the lower part is not readable. So avoid a gradient background. Similarly, avoid such textured background because it has a variable in the contrast and it doesn't allow a good readability or the visibility. So basically avoid texture background or a gradient background. My preference is either a dark background and a light font that gives a better visibility, or completely opposite of that, that we have a light background and a dark font. So ultimately the contrast is maximum and that gives a better visibility. Now neuroscience has understood that in visibility, the contrast is very important, and always ensure that your slide has a maximum contrast between background and fonts. How we can do that? When we are trying to adjust the background, the PowerPoint takes us to the color selection palette, and we have to look at that either you select background or a font in the center and select the other part outside the palette. So this will give you the maximum contrast and that will improve the visibility or the readability. I don't say that always use a plain background. You can have a slight variation like this or a variation like this where there is a dark and dark. So there is no gradient. Both are dark, but there is only change in the color. Or you can have something like this where there is a change in the color, but still it's dark. Or something like this. So yes, this is okay. You are bringing variety and that's good. But always ensure that the contrast between the background and the font is maximum. Coming to the fonts, the size and the types, both are very important. Let's take the first point, size. At least have a font size of 36. There are many people in the audience like me who don't have a 6x6 vision. They can't read the last line of the visual chart. And for them, it's essential that you keep the font size 36. 28 font size is difficult to read. And 20 font size is only few people can read, particularly those who are sitting in the last row. For them, it's very difficult. And if they can't read, then there is no purpose of slide. They just have to listen to you. So you are using slide as a support, but if you use a small font, you are losing that support. Coming to the type of the font, there are various fonts, and what I'm going to show you is like I'm 5 different type of fonts, each of 36 size. So this is Verdana, this is Arial, this is Tahoma, this is Segu UI, and this is the Calibri. Now, if you see, all are 36, but their size vary. So remember that it's not only the size, but the type of the font is also very important. Avoid the spatial fonts because many a times your presentation does not carry those fonts. And when you present at someone's laptop, particularly at the conference, your font will be completely disrupted. All alignment will change. So use only the fonts which are there in the PowerPoint. Don't use spatial or a rare font. And also avoid symbols because it has a tendency to be changed and present something else. So avoid symbols in your presentations. Coming to this upper and lower case, capitalize the first letter of sentence because we are able or we are tuned to read like this. The first letter of the sentence is capital. This is not easily readable. Capitalize each word. C, E, W. This is okay for the titles, but don't use it as a main text font or a case. Avoid all the letters in the uppercase. This is absolutely very difficult to read. It occupies a lot of space. And also avoid this, all the letters in lowercase. So ensure that you have capitalized the first letter of the sentence. Animations. Now, PowerPoint has a lot of animations and people like to use it to bring variety. I would suggest that use simple animations like this one, where it appears one by one. But avoid such irritating animations. And avoid this because this is waste of time. So yes, animations are good, but do not overuse it. Coming to the last part, and that is the overloading of the slide. Let's say that you are driving in USA and you come across this board. And absolutely you will be lost how to understand, how to read this. The same thing happens when you have a very busy slide. It's very difficult for audience to understand and read. I call this as a overcrowding trait. There are people everywhere and you see a similar type of style in many of the conferences. And here is one example. So all the information are kept in one particular slide. And because of that, the font slides are very small. And what happens when you have a full sentences, the audience will start reading. They understand that you are not a good speaker and that's why you have put everything in a slide. So please avoid such crowded train slides. The easy way to do is to animate. Allow one by one slide to come so that there is too much overload. So that's the easy way. You just give an animation. So one by one point appears. But still, that's not the 100% solution. Another good thing is like divide this one slide into 4 slides and take 1 point per slide like this. But again, the problem is that when there is a full slide, full sentence, the audience starts reading and they stop listening. Brain can focus either on listening or on reading. And when you are doing both, you probably lose the speaker. So please don't give this opportunity to audience. Instead of that, I would like to say that PowerPoint does not charge per slide. So try to increase the number of slides. And if you are confident, then the preferred solution is that give 1 point. This is basically the cue for you. You remember what to say. Say that, then you allow the second point to appear. then the third point appears, and then the last point. So put one point, explain that, after that animate the second point, explain that, then comes the third point. So the question is how to reduce text load. As I said, PowerPoint does not charge per number of slides, so keep only one point in the slide. Sorry, and keep only key points. Don't put everything. If you have 10 points, it's not necessary to keep all the 10 points in the slide. Take only 3 or 4 which are important and include that in the presentation. In single slide, maximum 6 lines should be avoided or should be kept, and avoid full sentences. Again, we see a lot of people, they are copy pasting the chart either from the text or from their dissertation, and we see something like this, a busy slide. I am thankful to Dr. Pranav Bhai for giving me this slide, and this is from his colleague's presentation, which he uses to convey that please don't keep such busy slide. Even I have seen when such slides are presented, the presenter himself find it difficulty to read the text. So avoid such things. This is second example, like you have copy pasted from the paper and there are so much of overload of the text. Again, when you put a graph like this with a small text, it's very difficult for audience to understand what you want to convey. So how I look at this point, if there is someone who is keen to eat, who is excited that I am going to have a great dinner, but instead of few items, you give him so many items, he is really shocked. The same thing happens with audience. So the best thing is, like, if audience is going to take more than 5 seconds to understand, then it's your duty to simplify it. How not to shock audience with information? That's the practical tip. So let's say that this is one slide in which the presenter wants to give the information that what is a value, normal value for blood sugar, to label it as a normal, as a pre-diabetic or a diabetes. And on the other hand, there are 3 tests: the fasting, postprandial blood sugar, and glycosylated hemoglobin or HbA1c. So instead of putting all this in one slide, try to use animation. So you first explain that on a vertical column, we have a fasting, PPBS, HbA1c. And then on the vertical second and third and fourth, we have normal, pre-diabetic, diabetes. Then you put this range. Then again you put this. And then again you animate this. So you are giving information slowly, and audience will be able to understand and grasp that information. So before you prepare a slide or a graph, ask this question: do I really need this graph or a chart? Or is there a simpler way to convey it? And most of the time, there are simpler way to convey the information which we are presenting in the graph. So the last point, the summary of the slides part. Speaker is more important than the slide. Your slides should be highly readable. Keep the text load as minimum as possible. Only cover required information. You don't need to tell everything. If you use all this, then outstanding conference, as I described in the beginning, where people are standing outside, will be converted into in-sitting conference, like the last JG Physiocon. Because if you give a good presentation, people would like to remain in the audience, in the hall, and would like to listen to you. So to end, like a bicycle, 2 wheels are important for any presentation. The content and the slide are the important wheel, and the delivery is decided how you drive the cycle. So for winning presentation, I would like to summarize that content and the slides should be taken care of. For content, try to give information based on YFM, avoid complexity, bring novelty. And for slides, it should be readable and not with overload of the information. So with that, I would like to thank the JG College of Physiotherapy for giving me this opportunity. And again, we have few minutes for the interaction.
Excellent. Thank you once again, sir, for the excellent presentation. I think we are talking about the presentation and we should respect the time. So for a couple of minutes, I have a couple of questions to you, both of you, the experts. How important is the delivery part? Do you think that it should be given enough weightage as the content and slide? One should practice about it or not? That is the basic question.
Yeah, Mihirdev, please.
Before giving a presentation, actually, I'm talking about a scientific paper presentation as because of the conference. The student or the presenter should really practice 3 to 4 times with a stop clock. That's very important. Starting the presentation with a very good pitch to impress the judges and ending the presentation before the time limit. If there is a 7 minutes of the presentation time, then before 25-30 seconds, one should end it. That's a very good impression the presenter leaves on the judges. So that's what I want to convey. And
Even
one thing I
even
want to
for
say,
the
yeah.
even for the non-competitor type of presentation, if if there are 200 persons in a audience and if you are overshooting time even by 2 minutes, then you are wasting 400 minutes. So I think time management is the utmost important, and I think we should respect the time.
Very, very,
Absolutely.
very
I
perfect.
fully agree with both the suggestions that practice, practice, practice. That gives you the understanding that where you stand for the time. And again, you need to practice so that your fluency during the presentation is better. What Because like if you are using only the text as a cue, you need to understand that when this point comes, what I want to speak. So for that, only thing is practice.
And depth of understanding is important, not memorization.
Yes, yeah. See, the
So,
problem which we discussed in the earlier section about the AI, when you use the help of AI, it's not your sentence. And when you have to speak about those sentences, it's very difficult because you have not written those sentences. So it's always better to write your sentences yourself so that it becomes easy for you to understand.
And
Or,
even
yeah.
And even eye contact, your body language of a speaker, that too matters because I believe confidence sells credibility. Confidence should be
Absolutely.
reflected when you are presenting.
Yeah, but that probably comes with experience.
Yes,
So
definitely. Yeah.
for the novice presenter, it may not be there. But yes, that's very important. That's very important.
so, so overall, the topic of presentation and delivering podium presentation, I think the content and the slides are the science of the presentation, and delivery part is the art of presenting the science, right? So we
Yeah,
should, I think, give weightage to both, and I think with that we can win-win. We can have a win-win situation.
absolutely. So at the end, I would just like to thank the JG College of Physiotherapy and OrthoTV. Because of OrthoTV, this is going worldwide. And I'm sure that not only the JG Physiocon, but many other conferences are going to take this important innovations and they are going to have a similar session before their conference so that ultimately the value of the conference improves. So with that, thank you everyone for joining and viewing this session. Thank
And I
you.
would like to thank Dr. Dhiren sir and Dr. Pranav sir for wonderful insights for our audiences. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
and bye.
Bye.